Good morning. It is it's Ernie Hall Day. Can you believe that? Hmm. I'm going to ask my dad why it took 89 years, to have an Ernie Hall Day. But, I love having fun with my dad. It's it's a, um, it's a joy. It's a joy having the fun with my dad that I do. And it'll be a fun it'll be a fun evening for sure. I don't know what to expect. We may just go there and just be escorted into the owner's box and just enjoy a good meal and a good game and some good conversation amongst ourselves. There's going to be 10 of us in the box, and my original intention was to fill the box with only veterans, and I started going around the community here. And I identified a few veterans, but then as the days passed, I got to thinking, and there's some really wonderful people here, and I selected several of the men here that I'm rather fond of. Hmm. It's interesting that when I say several of the men that I'm rather fond of. All my life, I've always had a tendency or propensity to befriend individuals that were older than myself. I don't know why that was, but in my teens, there was this gentleman named Bill Stone, and Bill and Arlene Stone. They've long since passed. But I lived in Euclid, Ohio, and going down Euclid, Ohio is this big boulevard called the Lake Shore Boulevard. Hence the Lake Erie is right there, so it's Lake Shore Boulevard. And in my neighborhood, there was always this big house up on the corner, and this house was always covered with evergreens and what have you, and it was a beautiful house. It was a massive house, and in the windows there were these like in one of the porch windows they had arranged these shelves, and there were all types of glass artifacts and what have you. But the house was really secret. There was an older couple that lived in there, and nobody really knew much about them. It was really a big secret, and what we did know is that they would leave in the winter time. They would about fall they'd get in their big white Cadillac, and they'd go to Florida. They used to go to Singer Island, as I remember it. It's called Singer Island, like the sewing machine, and they'd go down south. And anyway, I had them on my paper route as I got older into my teens, and they more or less adopted me. They both loved me, and I loved both of them. And Mrs. Stone had a pinball machine of all things. I mean, this woman was probably well into her 70s, and she bought a pinball machine, and it was called Fireball or something like that. I think it was called Fireball. And I used to stop on my paper route, and I would play pinball at their house. And it was a state-of-the-art pinball machine. And I'd stop at their house and I'd play pinball for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, And I befriended Bill. Bill and I became, we were close. And I would go everywhere with Bill, and I would help Bill with his chores. I'd hold the ladder for Bill as he'd get up on the house and do this or that, and or as Mercedes says, this or that. And anyway, but I befriended Bill, and God, I loved him so much. But I was just a teenager, and Bill was well into his 70s. And then as I left and there's another gentleman that I befriended. His name was Dick Maddox, and Dick was a gentleman who went blind in his early 60s. He was going to retire. He and his wife were going to retire. They had bought a camper, and they were going to go travel the world, or travel the United States, and do fishing. And Bill had found out that he had a pituitary tumor, and he went down to have it treated, and they overdosed him on radiation and fried his optic nerves, and he went blind 2 weeks later. Well, I was Bill's, or Dick's rather, I was Dick's in-home nurse. I was Dick's in-home nurse for the better part of, I don't know, 3 years or something like that. And I'd go in and every day I'd read Dick the paper, front to back. I'd read him the newspaper as he'd sit there in his big easy chair, and then he'd want to hear my stories of my gallivanting, around town the night before, and what have you. But I've always had the tendency to befriend older people. Those are just two of the relationships that stand out in my mind over the years. But anyway, I forgot what, I was talking, see how I get sidetracked? I was talking about Ernie Hall night and the fact that we invited several people. But so we're going to have a full, we're going to caravan. We've got 2 VIP parking passes, and we're going to caravan over to the arena, and it'll be a fun night. It'll be it should be a fun night. And I think that they'll put that up on the big screen and what have you. And you know what? Let the guy have his night. You know, he's 89, probably not too many thrills in his life at this point in time. You know, let him have his night. Let him think that the whole world is stopping just for him. So it'll be a nice evening. On another note, I was driving home yesterday from the bank. I can just hear one of my brothers right now saying, "Oh my God, here he goes. He's going to talk about money." Yes, I am. I'm going to talk about money. I was driving home from the bank yesterday, and it was the first day that I was able to go to the bank and deposit all of the checks that have been coming in over the last few weeks, because I bill my customers in advance. And, every year, as these checks come in, I just stick them into a drawer, because all my clients send me these checks because they want to write them off in the previous tax year. And I don't want to declare them in the previous tax year, so I don't cash them until the current tax year. And so every year these checks pile up, and every year there is the anticipation and the curiosity as to, when I go down to the bank, just what the total is going to be. And I went down to the bank yesterday, and I deposited this stack of checks. And I got to tell you, I drove home just in disbelief. I drove home in disbelief. And I say that because I deposited more in one single deposit than there was a day when I once thought I would never make that much in any given year. I never thought that I would make that much money in one given year, and here I am depositing it in one given day. And as I drove home yesterday, I found myself thinking about how fortunate I am, and how blessed I am, and I found myself thinking that there are those out there that would just look at me and say, "Oh, he's so lucky." He's so lucky. Look at the life he leads, and look at all this stuff. It's just luck. And as I found myself driving home, I started thinking to myself, there's nothing lucky about it. What I've achieved with my life has come from two things, and two things only. First and foremost, the grace of God. That's the grace of God. Second, hard work. Those two put together, the hard work and the grace of God, have gotten me to where I'm at right now. And anybody that thinks there's anything lucky about it, keep thinking that. Keep thinking that, and see if you get lucky and where it takes you. But no, it was nothing but it was hard work, and it was sacrifice. Anybody out there that watches these videos, it doesn't matter if you're young or not. I remember the sacrifices that I made to get where I'm at and doing what I'm doing. I was fortunate to have found something that was the perfect fit for me and that I loved, and that was computers and web design and all of that. So I was extremely fortunate to make that connection, and but the sacrifice that I made, the amount of time that I spent reading books and learning and asking questions, and staying home on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and getting up early in the morning, and it was just amazing. I just hard work. That was it. And the other thing was learning to believe in myself. There was a point in time, I talked yesterday about this woman who whose father had said some terrible things about her, and it led her to the point where she is where she's at today, with the self-esteem. When I left my home in Cleveland, Ohio, I was 17. I was thrown out of my house when I was 17, and I had the self-esteem of an ant. My self-esteem was like that when I was thrown out of the house. And for the better part of my 20s, and into my 30s probably for that matter, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I thought that little of myself that I couldn't even look at myself in a mirror. It was really something else. But anyway, the fact that I've gotten to where I'm at now in life is amazing. And I'll close this thought. My goal, my life has always been about goals, achieving goals. And I said that I made a deposit yesterday in an amount that was more than I had ever thought that I'd make in a year. My goal now is to give away more than I ever thought that I'd make in a year. That would be my goal, is to give away more than I ever thought I would make in a year. And if you do the 10% rule or something. So we'll see how that all works out. Anyway, in closing, let me say that for those of you that have a little God in your life, there's a little boy that Mercedes had sent me a message about. Little 5-year-old boy that had been airlifted yesterday and was having seizures and in pretty bad shape. Asked me to pray for him, and ask anyone else to pray for him. So pray for the little 5-year-old boy that got airlifted, okay? And have a fantastic Ernie Hall day. All right, take care.